Good evening. Welcome to the third episode of Ask the Lady Electrical Inspector podcast. I am your host, Tabatha L. I received quite a few emails from homeowners and electricians asking electrical questions regarding their homes and jobs. I'll get right into the questions. The first question I received, homeowner asks, why do I need to have a permit done? Why do I need to have a permit to have work done in my own home? Every project that you're doing in your home doesn't always require a permit. Whether these projects need a permit, it depends on your local building municipalities, which has its own permitting requirements. So you would need to reach out to your local municipality, go up to City Hall, and ask for that municipality's building ordinance or electrical ordinance, and they will have them. And nowadays, you can look it up online as well, because I've done that in some areas where I didn't quite understand their electrical ordinances. Or what was required in that municipality of what they wanted inspected. So I will go on the website and look it up. That's one way you can do that. Okay, so sorry. So with that being said, the projects that are most likely to require permits are those projects that will change the structural layout of your home. For instance, if you're adding a new addition to your home, you're going to need a permit. If you're doing a renovation in your home, you're going to need a permit. Here are examples of why you would need to pull an electrical permit. If you're changing or upgrading your electrical service in your home, like if you have a 100 amp service and you want to go to a 200 amp service, you would need to call a qualified electrician to come out and to look at that job and give you an estimate and call in for an inspection. You will want that inspected. The National Electrical Code, there's an Article 230, which is pertaining to electrical services. So in Article 230, you have to follow these guidelines on installing services. So what the inspector would do will come out and make sure that that electrical contractor followed those guidelines. Another thing you could you do need a permit if you're going to build a swimming pool in your backyard. Because with building a swimming pool, now you need to excavate, you need electric, you need plumbing. These things require permits because you're changing the layout of your home, and it's required. And it really is beneficial for you to make sure that you have a permit, because if you have a contractor come into your home and he doesn't have a license and he's not bonded and something happens to your home, and we're talking about electricity, so let's just stick with that. If you have, just say you hire your brother-in-law to install a panel. Your brother-in-law, he may work as a carpenter and he may work around electricians, so he may have some electrical experience, but he put this panel in your house. He installed this panel in your house. So let's just say 6 months later, you have a house fire. The fire marshal comes. He narrows it down to it being an electrical fire that started in your panel. Okay? So once they narrow that down, and that's the corporate, now they want to know who was the last contractor in your house, who did the work. So I've been in that situation with homeowners when I go to look at certain things. They can't tell you who did it. So now that's a problem because that's going to be a problem with your insurance company. Because if it's an electrical fire, that insurance company wants to go to that electrical contractor, which that person should be licensed and bonded to recoup their money. And if you hired your brother-in-law and he's not licensed and bonded, most likely you're just going to be out of a home. So you're really protecting yourself by getting a qualified electrician that can pull permits and will have inspections performed, because that's really important. So here's another question that I received from a homeowner. This question is pertaining to what I just mentioned, license and bonding. So you want to check to make sure that your contractor is licensed and bonded, like I just mentioned. And a way to do that is to ask the contractor. You can ask him if he has a certificate of insurance, which could provide the name of the insurance company, insurance policy number or something to that sort, just to verify that they have coverage. I would not, and I repeat, I would not do business with any contractor that could not provide me that information that I'm looking for, because, like I mentioned, that would solely be on you. So just make sure that they're licensed and bonded. So what does it mean to be licensed? So being licensed just simply means that an individual, they passed the minimum requirements in their field. They took a test and they passed the minimum requirements of that state. Like each state has requirements. Like if you want to be a doctor, you would have to take a test we know you would have to go to school for a certain amount of years, but you just can't go and start operating on someone. You would have to have training. So to become an electrician, you would have to have training. You have to go through an apprenticeship training program. You would have to on-the-job experience, take a state test just to pass the minimum requirements, just to say that you are proficient in that field. So that's what the license part means. And the bonding part just means that they have insurance. The bottom line, they have insurance. Here's another question that I received from a homeowner, and it states, how do you know how to vet a good electrician to ensure that your home is safe? One thing I would do if I was looking for an electrician, I probably would Google electrical contractors, and I would look for the stars. I would look and see how many stars they had, like 5 stars, and I would get a list, and I would get several estimates with electrical contractors that have 5 stars. I wouldn't go below 3 myself. If you didn't have 4.5 or 5, I would not hire you. Another thing I would do as a homeowner, I would hire an electrical contractor in my state. And that's probably just my own preference, but I would want someone that's local, because in my opinion, that would be easier to deal with if you had any problems that arise due to anything that contractor did. You could deal with him locally, because each state has different requirements. Because if you cross a state line, now you have to deal with that state and their requirements. So that's another thing I would do. I would just make sure I hired a local contractor. Okay, here we go. So here's another question. This is a homeowner's question. During the summer, my electrical box always has a couple of trips. When we turn on our portable AC, so I guess this homeowner is saying when she turns on her air conditioning in the summertime, it's a portable AC unit, and it trips the breakers. So she's asking me, does this mean she needs to upgrade her service? If your AC keeps tripping and the breaker keeps tripping, that's an indication that something is wrong. Something's definitely wrong because the circuit breaker, it trips. It's a safety feature. And if it trips and it continues to trip, it's a reason because that's the indication telling you, hey, something's wrong. It's possible that you may need to upgrade your electrical box, but I'm not sure unless you get an electrician out there to just look into it because just depending on when your house was built, like bedrooms, living rooms, hallways, those are the type of rooms that share circuits. So depending on where you're plugging your air conditioning in, if you're plugging it into the living room and you are sitting in the living room and you have your TV on, you may have a laptop, a light on, anything that draws power. And then in some other part of your home, one of your kids, they're in the bedroom, they're playing their games, and they have electrical, like they have every light on in the house. And now you turn on your air conditioner, the portable, you plug this in. So that alone is a high starting current. So that's going to pop on, and when it does, it's going to flicker. So that is an indication that you have an overload. So you can hire an electrician to see if he can balance your load out, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need to upgrade. But if you are able, you should. Here we go. I'm going to move on to another question. I want to go back on that question a little bit because I have a note here because I just thought about this. So if you have a portable air conditioner, like on that air conditioner, the nameplate, the manufacturer, it has to put who made the air conditioner. It has to have on there the amount of voltage it pulls. So if it's plugging into a wall circuit, that's telling me it's 120. And also, it'll tell you the amperage. So with a portable air conditioner, I'm thinking you need 20 amps on that. That's probably a minimum. If it's a smaller one, it's possible 15. And you need a dedicated circuit for that by itself. So you probably should hire an electrician or somebody to come out and look at that because with 15 amps just for that air condition by itself, it should be on a dedicated circuit and nothing else should be on there. Let me move on. Okay, so this question says you talked about receptacles overheating. What do you do if it happens? And if it happens, can you still use the plug? Yes, I did mention that on my last episode, and I want to thank you for listening and bringing that up. Thank you. Okay, so I did talk about that. So if you notice that your outlet is hot to the touch, that's telling you something is wrong. So if it's hot to the touch, I would unplug everything that's plugged into it, and I would turn off the circuit breaker or pull the fuse, and I will call an electrician immediately if it's hot where you just can't touch it because something is wrong. You know, I don't know if it's aluminum wiring because that is excessively hot, but just unplug everything and remove it. And then you state, can you still use that plug? No, don't use that plug. Turn off the breaker, call an electrician immediately. So part 2 of this question states, how can you tell if the outlet is overly hot to the touch? Well, no, she's asking how How can you? Oh, also, are there other signs of overheating? Like she's asking me, how can you tell if it's overheating? So the only thing I can say with a receptacle being over, that you can tell if it's overheating. When I go through homes and I see receptacles, if the receptacle, if it's a receptacle and it has a scorch mark on it or smut like black soot or something, or if it looks like it's melting, because I've seen receptacles like that where it's melting, something's going on with that circuit. So those are really the only visible indications that you probably can physically see, and that would be some type of scorch mark on that receptacle, some type of burn mark on that receptacle, and if the receptacle is deformed and it doesn't have the original shape. And another thing I have seen in homes where the ground tail, the grounding prong has broken off into the receptacle. That's something that needs to be repaired as well, because if you plug something in, you don't have a ground. And that's another discussion. So I'm not going to go too far into that. I hope I answered that question for you. Okay. I'll go here. And this question says, you mentioned not leaving furniture plugged in. Can you explain? Okay. Thank you for listening. I do have some listeners because I did mention that. So the furniture I'm speaking of is now manufacturers are making LED furniture they're making furniture like couches, tables, and they have lights on them, USB cords. And the problem with that, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, the problem when you make furniture like that, the furniture needs to be what we call listed. There's a code article, Article 110, 3B, and it states that electrical equipment should be listed. I've never done an inspection on a couch because it's coming from the factory. But as a homeowner, what I can tell you is that you should have some type of manufacturer's nameplate on there telling you what the amperage is and the voltage on that furniture. One reason you would want to see some type of certification that it was tested, because with the fabrics and lighting and different type of wood, these components, how do you know they work together? How do you know? Because LED light emitting diode, it's low. It gives off low heat. But if you haven't tested it to know how it works with silk, and you would need to do that in a testing laboratory, they would need to physically do that to test it. You wouldn't know. So it's really a safety concern. Just make sure it's listed, meaning that it has, there's different listings out there. You got UL, you have ETL, you have RU, and you can actually look online for nationally recognized laboratories. Can't think of that right now, but yes, you just need to make sure that it's listed. So there are potential safety hazards with that, and the safety details are considered when they're designing it. It should be considered, but like I said, you don't know if it doesn't have a tag on it. There's no way to know that. Okay, so here's another question that I'm going to try to answer. This question states that a couple of years ago, we hired an electrician. This is a long question. Electrician to add a ceiling fan to our dining room. After the fan was installed, it stopped working. I called another electrician out, and was told that the reason the ceiling fan did not work is because we had a dimmer switch. Ooh. The electrician stated that that was a hazard to have a dimming switch connected to a ceiling fan. How would a homeowner know that this was not supposed to be connected together? How would a homeowner know? That's a good question. The only way a homeowner would know that would be if they had some type of electrical background. So don't be too hard on yourself with that, because you did the right thing by hiring an electrician to do the work. But you should have followed through by making sure that the electrician had a permit. Anytime an electrician or any contractor do any work in your home, they should have a permit. Because if an electrical inspector would have came out there, they probably would have caught that to know that a dimmer and a ceiling fan, that doesn't go hand in hand. So that shouldn't have never happened. I'm sorry that happened, but next time just hire an electrician that has a permit, and that permit will require him to have an inspection. Because having an inspection ensures that the work is done correctly. And the job of the electrical inspector is to come to your home and check to see what was installed. And in that case, they would have caught that. They would have. Okay. So this question, I believe, came from an electrician, because the question is saying that antioxidant is not a code requirement. It rarely stated as a recommendation by the manufacturer. Okay, so I think he's talking about what we call compound. So I looked that up, and I don't see it a lot, but some contractors use it maybe just because it's a habit. But in Article 110.14, it does say materials such as solder, inhibitors, and compounds where employed shall be suitable for use and shall be of a type that will not adversely affect a conductor. So antioxidant is required if you're using dissimilar metals. You should use it. If you're going to connect copper and aluminum, we know you can't do that. But if you're doing it, you would have to have a wire nut, and you would need to use that antioxidant. So here's another question that is coming from an electrician, and it states anti-shorting bushings. I think we call anti-shorts. We call that redheads in St. Louis for MC cables. Okay, anti-shorts, yeah. We call it redheads, are not required on MC cables by code, nor recommended by the manufacturer. And this electrician, he has a code article, 320.40. Okay, so I've heard that argument before, but as an electrical contractor, you want to ensure that the cable is not damaged in any way. It's just a safety feature. I was an electrician in the field, and I have a full coil, a brand new coil of MC cable. It comes with redheads, so why not use it? It's just a safety. It's a safety feature. And then I have an article that can counter that. Article 300, because you need to protect it against physical damage. Because once you put that MC in that connector, you can't see what's inside of there. And if you're not careful, it's possible that if it's not cut properly, it could stab into the conductor, and you could have a short. So, in my opinion, if you have a roll of MC and you have bushings, use the bushings. That's just my opinion. Okay, moving along. Here's a question coming from an electrician, and it states, Straps for raceways and cables are not required to be listed unless specifically called out in the code book or the NEC. No, that's not true. And he said, unless it's called out in the NEC. He says, according to the CMP 8, in case you don't know what those initials are, CMP Code Making Panel 8, straps are not considered fittings. Well, I probably would disagree with that as well. Article 300.15, boxes, conduits, bodies, and fittings are required. Fittings and connectors shall be used only with specific wiring methods for which they are designed and listed. So this question to me says that if you're using MC cable or if you're using EMT, the fittings that you're using doesn't have to be the same. You would have to use, if you're using EMT, you would have to use fittings, connectors, supports that are associated with EMT, like minis, one-hole straps, strut straps. You would have to use associated fittings. So I disagree with that one. Okay. So I just put some notes here. A new edition of the National Electrical Code. The code is every 3 years. The code comes out. Every 3 years, the code. They have a panel, a code making panel, and they come together. These people are the manufacturers. They're inspectors. They are the installers. Consumers, testing laboratory, and special experts. They come together to talk about the new changes that happen every year because everything progresses so fast with technology. So the code cycles, they change and they add things as we go. Like with the LED lighting, they just add things just to make sure that we're keeping up to date with what's required in the electrical industry. So that's the code making panel. I wanted to just talk a little bit about jacuzzi bathtubs. And I want to make this a topic next week. So if you have any questions about jacuzzi bathtubs or hydro massage tubs, please send me your questions. I just want to make one quick statement before I get off. With jacuzzi bathtubs, everything, all of your electrical equipment shall be accessible without removing any part of building structure. So that means if you have to remove a plumbing pipe, that's removing part of building structure. That means that if you have to repair, that now you have to, if you have a repair on that motor in that tub, you have to call out an electrician and a plumber. And the code doesn't allow for that. And I would like to talk on this field, on this subject. So if you are any electricians out there or manufacturers or anyone want to talk about the jacuzzi tubs, please give me a call. Thank you for tuning in to Ask the Lady Electrical Inspector. Good night.